Now, councillors, can you please stand? I will reread the council prayer. Almighty God, as members of the Rangitikei District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all of the communities in the district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of all your people. Amen. Thank you. I'd like to record the apologies for today. I have apologies from councillors Piki Tiora Hero and Councillor Coral Rakawa and Councillor Jared Kalkin. I'll move that they be accepted for today. Seconded. Thank you. Those in favour? To my eye. Thank you very much. Just a little bit of a secretariat role, please. We have, and the timing with these things are an issue. We have a number of remits that are coming before council considerations. So a couple of the remits came out of zone, and a couple of the remits have been literally circulated in the last day or two. And I'll give you a very, very brief outline of the subject. My intention is I will put them out to councillors through email. I will give my opinion as part of that process and my recommendation in effect. And I will try and by email literally over the next few days get some sort of view. The reason of timing is because they have to go through the process with Local Government New Zealand. It doesn't quite match up with our processes. Peter?
I just wonder, Your Worship, if you might want to explain what a remit is for the people who are online and may not understand.
So a remit basically is we are represented as a sector by our governing body, Local Government New Zealand. Local Government New Zealand then work with government around bodies of work. And a remit is literally a notice of motion to ask Local Government New Zealand to do a certain amount of work in conjunction, presenting a case, if you like, to government. So, for instance, if Local Government New Zealand said, we want to lower the speed limit for all of the country, that would go through a remit process where all of the councils get to vote on it. And if the vote passes at local government conference, then local government is tasked with taking that position to central government for a decision. Any questions around that sort of process? Being a small council, we do not have the same weight of say in the voting numbers as the large metros. So it is not literally one vote per council with regard to remits. So it's dominated by metros. Metros are the Aucklands, Christchurches, etc. So the remits we have, first of all, there was a remit from Manawatu District Council that went to Zone 3 that LGNZ investigate and report to members on ways to help councils and communities that are struggling with the time frames in the earthquake-prone sections of the Building Act and council policies pertaining to priority thoroughfares. So priority thoroughfares, I will explain a little bit more deeply. The earthquake-prone legislation came into play. That was a government position that said, depending on where you are in the country, you have a certain time frame to bring your buildings up to compliance. If you don't do so within that time frame, then council will need to serve demolition orders on those buildings. Priority areas, supposing the time frame was 15 years, priority areas where councils decided that the greatest risk, especially to pedestrians, etc., travelling through a central business district, was such that it reduced the time frame by 50%. Our council made an active decision of council not to put in place priority areas in our district. So priority areas for our district do not apply. But for instance, Manawatu, that have put this remit forward, they put in place priority areas for the central fielding, which means that the 15 years drops to, say, 7.5 years from the time of identification to when building work has to be done. Any very quick questions around this? So Zone 3 has a process where the zone can decide to take by vote, to take the remit forward. Zone 3 councils, and I co-chair the zone, stretch from Gisborne, Wairoa down to Tararua, includes all of the Horizons area, so Manawatu, Palmerston North, Horowhenua, etc., but also includes councils up into through Taranaki to New Plymouth. So they all supported this remit, and I've personally said it would have my support. Okay. It then goes to Local Government New Zealand as part of that process. So this will already go through for decisions. The next remit is around, from Horowhenua, around rates rebate, proposed remit to LG&Z, submitted to Zone 3, and available from Internal Affairs, a rates rebate is a partial rebate for eligible low-income ratepayers who pay their rates on their home to a council. So this is a government rebate scheme. We will send it out in detail. I'm not going to go through it all in detail, but essentially what that remit is saying, these rebate schemes are getting out of date. There is insufficient money. It needs to be attached to CPI indexes, etc. So again, I will send this out to councillors. Sorry, just detail. Close. I will send this out to you as councillors with a full explanation. Again, supported by zone, it will automatically go through to Local Government New Zealand Conference. And as part and parcel of that process, what I'm looking for is how would our council essentially vote on this remit when it comes up for consideration? The next...
Sorry, a quick question, Andy.
Yeah, sure.
If we feed that back to you, but you had your own thoughts, does that override?
No.
So is it a council's decision or your decision?
Okay, it is a very interesting process in terms of voting on remits at Local Government New Zealand Conference, because councils can say we have an opinion, and then when you go to Local Government Conference, there may be contrary arguments that come into play where, very much like a council table, you can come to the council table, you've read the order paper, and you think that's my personal view, and that's the way I will vote. Having listened to the other councillors around the table, you suddenly start to think, oh, I hadn't thought of that aspect. And it is the potential of the council voting table to change your vote. I can't think of an opportunity of a time in the past where I have gone against a council recommendation as the voting member. But there's always that possibility, and I always tend to raise that. But really good question. There's a remit that's just come up literally this morning, and this is a remit that Timaru District Council are looking to put forward a remit to request at the AGM to request government for an exemption to the waste levy in regard to the relocation of waste from closed landfills, asking whether our council would support the proposed remit. I've replied to say yes, I think that probably we will, but I'd be interested in your views around that. And there's very little detail with it. But Peter, do you know more?
On this one, this is a Ministry for the Environment rebate scheme that if you are remediating a landfill from one site to another, part of any landfill fee includes a I'm trying to think of the right term for it, Your Worship. The levy, thank you. That we pay to the government, and our argument is that if we are moving from one landfill and remediating it, and a good example of that is the former landfill on Putarina Road, because of the river, then we shouldn't be paying another levy, having it, basically picking it up and moving it to protect it from the awa. So that's the logic behind it. We're currently in a process with Ministry for the Environment ourselves, and it's not an easy process.
Yeah. And this will play out over the next few years with a number of closed landfills, where you're caught by effectively a second drop of levy. The last one is a remit that's come out of New Plymouth District Council, Neil Holden. It didn't go before Zone, even though Zone was held. And it's a remit regarding road transport funding. And the remit says publicly lobby all political parties to increase Crown funding for state highway and local road maintenance budgets. Consider and pursue other avenues, including the Office of the Auditor General, to seek resolution of the issues facing the country in relation to the systemic rundown of our national roading infrastructure. There's some justification further down, but that is essentially, so the concern is that the maintenance on our state highway networks, the standards have lowered, and there are some graphs which have been given, which essentially show the lifespan of our sealed road networks, state highway networks around the country, to be significantly dropping. And Waka Kotahi is aware of this. These are Waka Kotahi official figures. And this is the situation. And the remit is saying, literally, there is not enough money being put into our road networks to keep them into a fit state. The same really applies to our maintenance networks of all of our authorities' roads. So that would absolutely have my support.
So I think we'll support that one.
Yeah. But please, we will put them out. I am interested, especially if there are any contrary views, but I would be interested to, because we need with time frame to put these forward for LGNZ conference.
Any question?
Any further questions around that? Sure.
Just wondering, so you want them in the next couple of days. Does that mean the cut-off is Monday lunchtime or is it Sunday night?
It really needs to be Monday, and say Monday at some stage.
Thank you.
I'm sorry about the time frames, but unfortunately these are time frames that are dictated by processes outside of our council. Anything further there?
When's it emailed out?
It will be emailed out literally today.
Right, okay.
Well, I was trying to do it now, yeah.
So we'll send it out now.
Might look at mine this afternoon.
Yeah.
Only window.
To cut to the chase, I would personally take a platform of supporting all of those remits. Right. Staff, is there anything else that I need to do ahead of moving straight into submissions?
I might just take those documents, Your Worship, and give those to Karen.
Thank you. Please, I will try and respond to the questions around those remits as they come, and I'll respond, of course, to all. Right, we're back on track now. Welcome to submissions from today. The first submission that we have is from Bain Simpson. Bain, if you'd like to go down to the far end of the room. Your submission is with regard to the community spatial plan. Bain, the rules of the process are you have 10 minutes. How you wish to use that 10 minutes is up to you, but it includes question time. And you can't ask questions of councillors, but they can ask questions of you.
Yeah, I was trying to time it for sort of 9 minutes 55, so there'd be no question.
I will tell you, give you a warning at 9 minutes as to how your time frame. You don't have to use all of that time if you don't want to. You go for it. Thanks,
Thank
Bain.
you very much. I'll rattle through this as quickly as I can, and then, yeah, fire questions, I suppose, but I'm not super familiar with how all the stuff of the spatial plan works, so I just put a pretty low-key submission in to be able to get in here, and I'd rather talk and what have you, but are supportive of what's going on. So good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to add some thought and suggestion to the district spatial plan for your consideration. From a local's point of view, after possibly 12 or so resource consents in the last few years, I'm now almost a graduate planner and engineer for the council. Not really, but I have lived in Marton for 42 years. This first topic is just to quickly throw in, which is still covered under the spatial plan, but it's to do with the main street and what have you. So I've got a low-key piece of paper drawing that I'm going to give to one of the councillors, and it's for council's consideration, just an idea that I put out there. So it's an idea for Broadway, and it was just that, you know, as we know, Bulls has had, you know, some large investment around what's been spent down there. Taihape's due to get some major works underway. This could be an idea for the Marton Main Street, and it was just to make the main street a one-way street, which no doubt plenty of people want to complain about. I've drawn a wee picture of it, but currently, like as the street lies, if I park my ute, for argument's sake, in the main street and you're heading north, someone would have to stop to let traffic heading south because it's quite narrow. So my idea was to go from roundabout to roundabout, one way, angle park the whole main street. We've got good alternate roads to go back round to get back onto Broadway and head up. And any service vehicles that stop on the main street, just the whole main street comes to a grinding halt. So if you narrowed the road up to one lane, perhaps in front of Cook's, where there's currently angle parking, if you could imagine moving those angle parks further out into the lane, because it'll be a lot narrower, you potentially could have a heading north loading zone in where those cars currently sit. So there's a drop-off point for taxis, service goods, etc., and there might be space for garden and things there potentially. I haven't put a lot of thought into it. It was just an idea, and I thought, well, you know, I'm pro the district in Marton, and I thought it might have been something that was a cheap spruce up for the main street to help things flow a bit more smoothly than it currently does. So yeah, I'll leave that idea sitting amongst the heads of the councillors, and you guys can decide whether you think that's a fantastic idea or not. Myself and our company RDL are excited about the movement in the district over recent years. We support the spatial plan and the Marton Rail Hub. Thank you to all the councillors, Mayor and our CEO and the team for the effort they have put in this far. It has been a tremendous hurdle to sort out the critics and no doubt great expense to the ratepayers, but the long-term benefit will outweigh, I'm sure. The council and their team of planners have seen the requirements of what's needed for a thriving local economy, and with that comes high quality infrastructure and investment in the Rangitikei and its people. Marton's location is what's triggered the rail hub, and is also people's appetite for cheaper housing than our surrounding areas. We've seen the demand. Hereford Heights is testament that for housing. More land is required. Currently, Marton has seen growth to the east in the form of lifestyle blocks on Ngātawa Road, Hereford Heights and Campbell Drive off Breeden's Line, totalling 130 houses alone. To the south has been Wellington Road on the town boundary, and soon to be completed Harveston and Kensington Road, totalling 117 more houses. There is nothing to the north. However, almost every growing centre in New Zealand grows north. Our land, all of the district land effectively, mainly consists of class 3 land in close proximity to the town boundary. So it doesn't matter which way we track, the land classes are relatively similar. In the land identified, and I don't know how familiar everybody is with the land that's been allocated for the spatial plan to growth, so it's numbered off obviously into all the different blocks. Identified as high suitability in MAR 02, which is part of Rangitikei Development's land. We would like to add part of MAR 07, which abounds the MAR 02 block. The reason for this greenfield development is connectivity, infrastructure, design, and the willing landowners, which is obviously us. I mean, you can rezone as much as you like, but if the people that have got the land don't want to do anything with it, it's not going to get us where we want to be. There's some land identified, this under what the planners have identified, if people that don't want to develop or can't. An example of this is MAR 04, half the land up there is owned by iwi. So I think it's Stan Wilson Caratier and that family from over the river, and I've spoken to local iwi about it, and I've done some inquiry about it a few years ago, and it's, you know, it's fairly well locked in that some of the land on Breeden's Line, some of the land to the end of Dalrymple Place, you know, I mean, your chances of ever doing anything with it be zilch, you know. MAR 05, half the land is owned by and is part of Ngātawa, at the back of Ngātawa. Although it is not shown in blue for a school zone on the RDC maps, it is now Ngātawa land. I would imagine that it would be very unlikely that it would be developed, even if it was brought into residential. The rest of the current residential is either flood zone, uneconomic, contaminated, or unwilling owners to develop. So when you look at the map in Marton, right, there's quite a bit of residential land, but it's sort of the pepper pot approach, I suppose, to trying to fill in the gaps, and some of that will happen, but some of the land's just, it's typically not suitable. It's never going to develop. Stormwater management is a number one concern on our land in MAR 07. This is the end of Milne Street. We have capacity for 60,000 cubic metres of retention, and we only require about 5,000 cubic metres of retention for our development. The extra capacity is very beneficial to Marton, reducing flooding in Grey Street and Fulham Street, not to mention the downstream effects. So the big greenfield development, you know, this area, you know, it's a big chunk of dirt out there, and it could take quite some time to develop. You know, might be 10 or 15 year program, or it might go boom in 5 years, but you can't address the flooding that currently happens in Marton in the residential area, and you can't do it on tiny little residential plots that need developing. You've got to think big picture, big chunks of land where you can actually hold some water up and help what's going on further downstream. And Horizons, who I'm not a great friend of, but they are actually doing some work in this area, and Rangitikei Development in our generosity gave them $30,000 worth of stormwater modelling we've done for the whole Marton catchment, from the upper Tutanui ponds, all the catchment board dams, to Horizons planning, and that's for they're trying to get some stuff underway, because obviously the main street floods, and it's still going to unless some bigger picture stuff's done, and we can address that within our engineering design for what we do in those larger areas. So to implement this RDL, we're pursuing a private plan change. So this is sort of going alongside whilst the spatial plan's been done by council for a larger area. So we're just pursuing our own plan change for our own land. It will be submitted in the next few weeks. We've already been working on this for 2 years, and we will be out of developable land within 12 months. So that's us at the moment. We've got one more block to develop and then we're done, and there's really nothing available for development. Hence the private plan change. We're not waiting for the council to complete the spatial plan. We've we're going to try and get ours through a bit quicker than waiting for the wider picture. So that's when it turns up on the
About
table.
a minute left, mate. About a minute left.
This comes as a significant cost to RDL, but given the experts we use and support, I feel that this is required to supply some of the 60 houses a year needed in our town. Now, it's not a wait and see approach, as I was told we would never sell out Hereford Heights, and it went like that. So my justification is still the same as it was when RDL was formed, and that is to increase the rate pool as opposed to large rate hikes every year. As a large rate payer myself, it's hard to keep up with the pace they increase, however they are required. If we keep attracting people, driving growth, then the rate increases should slow considerably. Most of the complainants to council and the Marton Rail Hub, interested resident Martins, as an example, are normally people 60s, 70 years plus years of age, you know. Their opinions are relevant. However, the growth and well-being of our district will be forged by positive people and for our youth. This are the district's future, not ourselves. So in closing, council has my full support for their spatial plan and the changes. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. You're virtually bang on time. Blaine, thank you for your submission. It will be considered, and you've referred to a consenting process going forward where council will be involved in that sort of process as well. So thank you for your time. But unfortunately, we've run out of the opportunity to ask questions of you.
Perfect. You got my phone number.
Thank you. The next section, Emma Uncles
It's supposed to be via Zoom.
via Zoom. Have we had anything there?
No. So Joe is here. We're going to do
So we'll move, Joe, we can jump the queue with you. Joe, if you'd like to come down to the head of the table. So this is Joe Rankuni, page 110, Community Spatial Plan Submission. Joe, the time is yours.
Do you want me to, I think I'll lean.
Whichever you feel comfortable. So Joe, you have 10 minutes. How you use that time is yours.
Thank you.
I know you're well aware.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for listening. I hope you're going to listen. I feel that Pai Tawhiti is the most impressive and comprehensive document. And naturally, I took home the whole document and skim read it. But it's certainly got lots to think about. I'm only going to talk to the Bill's summary, and I'm going to talk on behalf of myself. I think the themes, there's an interdependence there, and getting a balance for the diverse community is a challenge to you. And I challenge you to consider the diversity and consider the themes. For me, it's very important to consult with stakeholders because different people have quite different interests. And I'm an old person, I have an old person's interest, but I certainly accept there's other very, very different interests. For me, attracting the 25 to 45-year-old age group is terribly important in our communities that often make investments. They've got children in our schools. The children in Bulls are lovely. We walk and see them. They're well-mannered, polite. And I always tell people we've got the best doctors and the best schools in New Zealand. So anything that attracts that age group, I think, is very, very helpful. A range of housing, preferably driven by the diverse community needs, not just by developers pushing for consents where flooding may occur. I was out walking yesterday and there was some areas that looked a little bit dodgy and they're full of houses. Because in close housing has consequences. In Bulls we've got some very close housing. You can get more on street parking, sometimes it's a real problem. Yesterday I was out walking and there wasn't any, but sometimes where we are in Wilson Street, you've got on-street parking, you've got quite a narrow road, you've got logging trucks that are about a mile long, and you've got other trucks that also are about 4 trucks long, what they used to be. And with children, it's sort of a little bit of a weird mix. Your change of speed limit, whoever pushed for that by Bull School, I think that was clever. I noticed that lots of vehicles do the slow bit all day, and some don't do the slow bit even when they should be. Those half-hour periods when children are coming and going, and you get the odd truck that didn't read the sign either. But I guess you people know that that's what the real world is. Te Matapihi I regularly visit. I use the library. The books change regularly. I find some really interesting books, which is pretty good. And the other thing I notice in Te Matapihi is the number of visitors and people who comment very, very positively on the toilets, saying how wonderful they are. And of course, we've got the charging for the Today's World cars, which is lovely, and the toilets. And people come in the building, they like the toilets, they like the building, they're pretty jolly impressed. And now we've got people doing day trips from Wanganui apparently to look at the building and have a coffee and so on in the town. So the building has become a destination. So different people have different views, and some of the people with different views I don't think will change for a generation. So I guess we move on, and hopefully people will listen to. I think people have an enormous appetite for negative news, and some people only like to talk to people who talk negative news. The minute they start with me, I move on, so haven't got time or headspace. I do think paramount in our communities is water. I'm not sure of the security of Bull's water. I used to know and understand that sort of thing, but I don't know. As an older person, I guess I rely on you to make good decisions for me, to know what's going on, to understand water, to understand consents and sewerage. Because I think older people probably should back off and age gracefully, but I still think it's very, very important that the decisions made on our behalf are well made and well considered. And of course, affordable rates. Some people really struggle. And I think in today's world, we've got women living on their own, and there's a lot of people in our neighbourhood who are in a big house with grounds on their own. I don't know what the answer is to that. And I guess maybe some people need encouraging. I do think a different style of housing could, I think Denmark has very, very good models of housing for maybe older people and single people, and lots of people live on their own. And you've got all divided households. So today's world's very different. And I think the more comfortable we can make it for people, the better. And I think that's about all I want to say.
So are you happy to take some questions from
I'm
council?
very happy to take questions.
Council member.
The diversity you referred to at the start of your presentation, are you meaning it across all things like age group, ethnicity, types of people?
Totally.
Yeah, all types of diversity.
Absolutely.
Right.
I love diversity. It really upsets me if I go somewhere and everyone looks the same. I think, oh, what's going on here? So, no, I'm all for encouraging. I do think it enriches our lives and it enriches our neighbourhood, and yeah, a lack of it worries me.
Right.
And I do think we need a lot of work on it, because I think the Ringitiki is very, very conservative, and people are very conservative. And yeah, I think we've got plenty of room to
Diversify.
Councillor Dalgety.
Just interested if you've got particular ideas around what we can do to attract that 25 to 45-year-olds.
Well, I'm totally out of touch, but I do know in Bulls we have a lot of Ohake people, which Ohake has an enormous school base of very, very interesting people. We have some of those people in our schools. We've got rural people too. I'm not sure. I do think the pattern in Bulls is that a lot of our skilled people, teachers and doctors and nurses, come from Palmerston, Whanganui and Marton and anywhere. And a lot of our skilled people in Bulls go out to work. So I would think it's like everything in life. You probably need data today and maybe get some data on what 25 to 40, what they're doing, and maybe talk to schools, because I think our schools are very good. And I think so often people make assumptions rather than going out and ask the school. And, you know, I'm out of touch, but if I was much younger, I'd be rushing around asking a wide range of different people what their opinion was about this or that or 50 other things. But I do think there seems to be something in the water today that stops people from wanting to work with other people and listen to other people. And I don't realise the strength in unity. You know, if we can get, and I think that's around leadership too. I do think if we could get leaders that can get people, different people, your diverse people, working together, and there's enormous strength.
Joe, we've got about a minute left. Question from me, just a clarification in terms of your written submission. There's a line there that says relationship building and trust are constant issues with council staff at Te Matapihi who do their best. Do I interpret that to say that relationship building and trust are constant issues, and then separately that council staff at Te Matapihi do their best?
I think, yeah, they're separate ideas.
Okay,
Sorry about that, I do tend to think in bits.
No, I presume that was your thinking,
Right,
but just the way it read, it could have been interpreted elsewhere.
sorry.
So, thank you. Any further questions, councillors? No, Joe, thank you very much, and thank you for the long-term engagement that you've had with council.
Listen to someone else.
I've just checked, looking at his note online here, the thing, so, and we haven't got Lynette here yet.
Right. And Lynette's not here yet, is she?
So we've got a couple of minutes. I don't know if we're going to take a quick break.
Certainly. Just, we'll adjourn for 5 minutes until our next people turn up. Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors. We'll resume, please. We're back live streaming. Lynette. I'm sorry I haven't walked over to introduce myself. I'm Annie Watson, Mayor. Lynette, if you'd take a seat at the end. Just before your time starts, I'll talk around the terms of engagement, if you like. You have 10 minutes, which includes question time. How you use that time is up to you. If you decide you just want to speak for 10 minutes, that's fine, but it removes the ability for councillors to question. They can ask questions of you, but you can't question councillors. Familiar?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Your time whenever you're ready.
Morena koutou, ko Lynette Beish toku ingoa. My name is Lynette Beish and I'm a resident of Bulls. I own a Category 2 listed heritage farmhouse, one of the original homes built in the district by James Bull. It's not very well built, and over the years it's had many additions to it, not under my ownership, but any heritage architect would and has regarded those additions as completely unauthentic over that time. It is a product of many times and it is what it is. I've invested in its built fabric myself through the resource consent process because I want any changes I make to be right, appropriate, transparent, and in accordance with the values for which it is protected. I believe in the public good that exists in doing that. While the house is materially mine, culturally it is an asset to the community like all of our listed heritage buildings and places. So, of course, are the many examples of built heritage fabric, parks and places throughout our district, and most pertinently in our beautiful township of Marton. Those early examples of colonial architecture and pioneering town making are our heritage assets. They're markers reminding us of the generations before, and if it weren't for those early architects and town makers, we could be somewhere completely different. But we are here, and there is much to appreciate about that. I'm here this morning to submit to the council that I support the 4 stated objectives on page 4 of the annual plan consultation supporting document for the Marton Civic Centre. But I do not, however, support the 2 shortlisted options. I think that there is insufficient information for the public to be able to assess the options in any case. So that missing information, I believe, could be around costs. What are the anticipated overruns, for instance, for option 1? If this was transparent, the cost margin would likely be a lot wider. Risk level. The option 2 risks are arguably lower than high. For many, including heritage experts, an appropriately framed proposal addressing heritage values would carry low to moderate risk. I don't disagree with the statement made on page 5 of the document then, that option 2 carries significantly less risk than full demolition. There is scant information available to the public and the community to understand either proposal, least of all what option 2 would look like and how it would impact on heritage values. I believe the document expresses some bias with respect to amenity values in the town. It is already a boutique town, and it is my place of preference for shopping. I don't want to travel to Wanganui, and I dislike shopping in Palmy. But that's not to say that more investment in the Marton Town Centre is not needed. I'm not the only one who's noticed the rain pouring through the electrics in the buildings on the corner that were purchased by the council. So what should the council be trying to achieve here? The Resource Management Act defines its purpose as the sustainable management of natural and physical resources in a manner which ensures that those same resources can be utilised for the needs of society today without giving rise to their depletion and hence their availability for future generations. Section 6 of the RMA includes landscape values and historic heritage as matters of national importance, necessitating their protection, therefore, from inappropriate subdivision use and development. District plans must identify and determine heritage values. They must identify historic heritage to be protected and to what extent land use and development impacting on historic heritage features may or may not be appropriate, as the case may be. What is heritage? Well, heritage is whether natural or cultural, tangible or intangible, is encapsulated by anything from the past that has survived into the present. And in terms of the built environment, heritage encompasses a diversity of features that make up the historic environment and the particular local characteristics that contribute to this diversity. Those special places can include anything from landmarks, monuments, buildings, and open spaces to landforms and townscapes. Spatially, notions of heritage have expanded from an object to a vast scape of objects. So a dot on a page to the landscape before us. Yet landscape is not just a canvas for the visible, it is a living phenomenon of cultural experience and a point of interaction for people with nature, culture, the past and the present. Landscape is the touchstone for the dynamic that is sense of place. Me huri whakamuri ka titiro whakamua. In order to plan for the future, we must look to the past. What do these buildings tell us about the past, about our forebears, the people who built this town? Can we as a community please know, as part of the process of being asked whether it should be a part of our townscape or not? This document refers to the development of a boutique town, but based on a heritage precinct approach. I challenge how this can be achieved with the option 1 laid out in this proposal. Because option 1 is to remove what is identified as 4 significant heritage value listed heritage buildings from the central quadrant of the gateway intersection of the CBD of Marton, from which already 2 other heritage buildings have been demolished and removed permanently. Heritage has been a decisive contribution in the field of social and economic regeneration in many countries, in Britain, in Europe, America, everywhere. Although heritage conservation presents certain developmental constraints, it is acknowledged that by and large, heritage buildings and historic areas provide opportunities for economic and social regeneration, social well-being, neighbourhood renewal, for social inclusion, and cultural diversity. I submit that the Council must appreciate the cultural and social values of existing built assets and recalibrate the option 2 to show and to demonstrate to the community how powerful and attractive a regenerational heritage concept can be, not just for Marton residents, but for anyone who visits here. Moreover, if Council want to support regeneration of our heritage assets and the strengthening of earthquake buildings, it should lead by example. Thank you.
Are you happy to take some questions? A question from me. How familiar are you with the initiatives Council has put in place to assist earthquake strengthening of heritage and non-heritage buildings?
I'm not, and it is my fault because I missed a public workshop where you had some architects and earthquake building specialists, and I'm afraid I missed that. So I am familiar that you are proactive in that space.
Thank you. I'll open it up. I've got other questions, but I think I'll give councillors a fair crack at this and time available. Councillors, do you have any questions? While they're thinking, first of all, thank you for your submission. It's absolutely accurate. You've made some further points that are not part of your written submission. Are you able to leave a copy of this to save the transposing of the audio?
Yes, absolutely. I can provide that electronically without my notes all over it this morning.
That would be useful for staff. Thank you for that. And so, in essence, in principle, if I look at the Marton options, you're supporting an option where there is maybe partial destruction or partial a saving of facades, etc. But you're wanting more information really around the cost structures and risks associated with that.
Yes, and the amenity and what it will look like, exactly what is going and what is staying. It wasn't quite clear.
Okay, thank you. All we've done is put out a concept in essence, so there'll be a further amount of work that's required.
I understand that.
Thank you. Further questions from councillors? Councillor Wong.
Thank you for your submission. I am a Taipi or Northern Ward councillor. You didn't make any comments about the options for Taipi. I was wondering if you had any views or was not of.
I drove through Taihape last night, but I couldn't see it. I do have views, and I think also the same values apply to Taihape. It's a beautiful town, and it's a shame that those buildings are empty, the town hall and the old post office. So the same investment and impetus should apply to all of our towns in the Rangitikei.
Can I ask a question?
Go for it.
Do you consider Taihape to be a boutique town as well?
Yes, I would. And I stop there for coffee all the time, and I like it. Yes, it's great.
Thank you. You'll take one more question, Councillor Dalgety, and then we'll need to close.
Thank you, fantastic submission. I'm interested, I've actually just gone totally blank on what I was going to ask. No, it was a little bit beyond, do you have any ideas in terms of revitalisation of our main street? What low-hanging fruit there might be for council that we could do?
I could write a list. But I certainly
Thank you.
don't have enough time to
We do
describe.
need to close it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next submission, Heather Thorby, sent off Domain Management Committee. We seem to have half of the Domain Committee here at least.
Isn't it wonderful?
Fantastic. Heather, will it be just you speaking?
I've got an apology from Paul Gertchens. He's had an emergency and he's got more of the details on the building and that and we're happy to come back if you need him later on. So
Thank you. Heather, you'll be well aware of the constraints around submission processes. You have 10 minutes, including question time. How you use that time is yours. And councillors, if there is time available, may have questions they wish to ask of you.
thank you. I've allowed 5 minutes for question time. So
Fantastic.
listen up, I'm going to go fast.
Right.
Good morning, Council. Thank you for the opportunity. For those that don't know me, I'm Heather Thorby, the Chair of the Sent-Off Domain Committee, and I've lived and worked and farmed out in the area my whole life. So, unfortunately, Paul, as I said, our project manager and our Vice Chairman can't be here this morning. I want to do a warm welcome to our committee members. We've got at least 3 of the 6 Sent-Off Domain Management Committee members here, and we've got members of the newly formed Sent-Off Domain Incorporated Society, which is a financial wing that will support the domain. And lovely to see John here too, and it's great. Thank you for your support. I especially want to say a special thanks for their selfless hard work and support over the past 5 years. In the 5 years, not once have we failed to reach quorum with any of our meetings. This is only the second time that I have spoken to you on the Sent-Off Domain. The first time was when we submitted our plan in December 2020. Now, we've got the update. It's been circulated to everybody, and we've taken time to give you pictures and give you as much information and everything that we've done. I expect all councillors to take the time and actually read the words on that sheet because it's important to us. We also ask that the council approve and endorse any application for funding that we need done by the owner of the domain. Relating to the annual plan, there's 2 sections that we need to comment on. Page 17, the heading is reducing community funding to lower rates. Your quote, council is looking at reducing the funding that is available for the community to apply for and removing the Parks Upgrade Partnership funding. Our comment, Sent-Off Domain has never received any council funding since our re-establishment in 2018. We have been self-funding from our own domain account and no ratepayer funds have been involved. We now face an on-site capital cost of your facilities building. Page 7, heading, what council achieved during their 2022-23 annual plan? Your words. Council produced a parks, open spaces and sporting facilities strategy, which will be completed by June 2023, next month. This strategy will provide long-term guidance on the parks and open spaces that we need across the district. Santoff comment. As a publicly elected committee of council, we were not consulted. We requested involvement because we're at an important stage of development. Our understanding is that this strategy will form the policy for council's parks and reserves for the next 30 years. Subsequently, I phoned the Thrive consultant and asked him what information he had been given on the Santoff domain. It was Athol Sanson's planting plan from 2018, which had not been approved, and not our December 2020 council approved past document. Number 1, I formally request today a copy of this strategy as soon as possible. 2, that the Santoff Domain Management Committee will discuss, and if it adversely affects us, we'll be back in front of council. In the 2020 submission, we covered the why and the how of the Santoff Domain. This is the what. What is the significance of rebuilding the Santoff Domain? There is no rural recreational facility in the lower Rangitikei, that's Scott's Ferry, Bulls, Santoff, Paranui. As a rural ratepayer, I've watched the recreational funding from council go into urban recreational assets. The lower Rangitikei in the last 30 years has lost facilities such as Flock House, which was pool, squash court, gyms, tennis courts, rugby, cricket grounds. It also lost the use of the Bulls racecourse and the Santoff Domain. Bulls has also lost all service clubs, Lions, Rotary, JCs, Masonic Lodge, which carried out good works. The long-term implications of these changes has affected the social connection, support structure, funding ability, and the community's resilience. People matter, and I care. We have had adverse climatic events, 2004 floods, Mycoplasma bovis epidemic, Santoff was affected, and everyone experienced the worldwide COVID pandemic. All of these take a toll on rural life. Farming is a unique industry, so much is out of the individual's control. The weather, mortgage rates, stock prices and regulations. Well, coming up, we've got emissions trading, animal welfare, environmental reform, Resource Act, and a raft of political change. Rural people face different issues from urban. And one illustration after the recent fielding sale, walking down the street, ran into a local farmer and told him what I was doing. Hadn't seen them for about 2 years. He said, great. He said, I spend all day, every day out on the farm. He'd taken to going to the Rat Hole and Bulls for an hour on a Friday night just to have some company, and he's even given that up. And that's my point. The rural people, when they're under pressure, they go back to the farm and they work harder. They don't decompress. And I don't want to hear of a single suicide or mental breakdown, because the community is willing to put their arms around these people and support them. Our community has elected qualified, experienced, knowledgeable and wonderful people on both our committee and the newly formed Santoff Domain Incorporated. 5 years ago, our committee was told by councillors, we have no money. This year we are told we have no money. I'm predicting in 5 years, again, we're going to be told we have no money. Well, in 5 years, this community has proved itself. It's done the work. It's paid the bills. Look at your pictures. So council, I implore you, break open the piggy bank, put your hand behind the sofa cushions, upend the mattress and step up. Finally, to quote from the JPS Dudding Trust front page, quote, John Dudding recognised the financial challenges caused by the fluctuating farm prices and the hardships experienced by people living in rural areas, and set up his charitable trust to help cushion the Rangitikei people from the vagrancies of the economy. 55 years on, this is still applicable today. Together with council, this domain will have a powerful force for good. And I'll photocopy that for you.
Thank you. Heather, are you happy to take questions?
Yes, I'll just, Paul's just dropped in this picture of the new building. There, I can leave that as well. So that's the very latest that I've got. And as I understand it, the building plans have gone to submission for council consent, and that's where we are at the moment.
Question from me, first of all, thank you for the offer. We will take up your offer in terms of your notes, and council will reflect that there are table documents. How much money are we looking at?
The costings have, that's what I was hoping Paul was here. It hasn't been costed. It's gone out to 3 builders, as he was telling me, for the costing to be done. So we don't know. But where we need help, our little community fundraising for our domain has stretched the funds $1 to $4. And we need the compliance costs money, which is, it came as a real shock. That Geotech report was 7,800 plus GST, and the others are listed in the front there. That's a whack. We'd like some of that back into our account so we can actually do the on-land work. So the building, we don't know at the moment.
In terms of our process going forward, when would we be likely to have information with regard to this?
Again, Paul's project manager, it's unfortunately he's not here. He's the one that will know the timing of when he'd put that out to 3 builders, so.
Okay, questions?
I am a new councillor. I'm just a bit unfamiliar with the project, but what is the aim of the project? I'm just assuming that it's on the corner of Beamish Road?
Yes,
And,
directly
that's
opposite the school.
old school.
Directly, yeah.
So what is the overall vision of having a domain out there? Is it,
Well, as I say, the rural community has got no place to actually gather, and that's the point. It's a campsite. It's facilities for equine users in particular, because the domains and the grounds and parks in Marton, you can't have 200 horses on there. They've all been developed up with turf culture and everything else. So there's been no place. We've lost the race courses. That's my point. There's groups waiting to come there. And there's all sorts of other opportunities for that community. It's always been self-funding, and that's our intention, is as a domain to be self-funding, but we can't cope with the big cost of the facilities.
Heather, I need to stop you now. We are out of time. I presume that you would welcome any councillor to go and view the site.
Yes, I think that would be, it's good that people are keeping an eye on it. We invited our local MP out there.
I need to stop you in terms of time. Thank you very much, Heather, and I acknowledge the committee that is here. Thank you for helping represent.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you.
I now move to submission from Patricia Pierce. Patricia, welcome to council. Thank you very much for your submission. In terms of time frame, you have 10 days. And how you use that is your issue.
Thank you. So one of your...
I will warn you when you get to about a minute to go.
Okay, I won't use that time, I hope. One of your council employees very kindly printed off some maps of
Yeah, I'll put them on the screen.
Oh, very good. Okay. So this is, I'm Patricia Pierce and my husband Timothy, and we own close to 40 hectares of the 63 hectares of land within MAR 1, which should come up on the screen. Here we are. So we live here, and our land boundary is this amount here. I also have spoken to Teresa Cunningham, who lives up here, and she sort of echoes my views, but I didn't get her to sign anything, so this this is from me and Tim, really. We're full-time practicing veterinarians. We don't live off our block of land, but we're transitioning obviously to retirement. We've pretty diligently farmed our property, which is a GST registered business for the last 35 years, and we run a mixture of agricultural production ranging from lamb and beef meat production, wool production, contract grazing, cropping, supplementary feed production, thoroughbred breeding from that property in 35 years. And with regard to the productive capacity of the land in MO1, although it's currently zoned rural, it's got to be clear that the existing level of subdivision effectively renders it uneconomic. And of the 4 property owners that own that entirety of MO1, none are productive units if one uses your Collins dictionary definition rather than the national policy for the policy statement for highly productive land. So the net value of production from our block has been on average over that last 35 years, probably 0, even though we've tried pretty hard. But the soil remains available for productive activities, and finding an activity that will be truly productive might require some out-of-the-box thinking. That's why our written submission, we suggested that a more productive use of the soil might actually be as smaller blocks than ours that encourage new and more intensive activities. That do use the soil in a more productive way, focused at sustainable low carbon footprint lifestyles with a lot less intensification, that allows for flood-inducing rain to permeate through the permeable surface, but does create a vibrant community that supports things like farmers markets, craft breweries, essential oil production, open gardens, and that can transform Marton from somewhere out of towners, drop the kids to school and leave, to a place they stay, or at least as a weekend destination. We also note that the constraints on planning ahead of placed on the Council by the National Policy Statement for Highly Productive Land 2022. But we do note that old survey maps viewed suggest that at least some of the land with the MO01 appears to have been identified for future development. So the survey lines at the entranceway to our property on Tutanui Road mirror the dimensions of the Amatera's access way. And this appears on Rangitikei County local plans as far back as 1955. So I would argue that it's actually previously been identified for future urban development as far back as that. And under the policy and definitions and under the policy statement, can't be met as highly productive land anyway. With regard to further feedback on the details underpinning the various growth options in your draft documents, we'd be keen to understand the nature of the natural hazard, so it's identified as having a natural hazard. If it relates to a small area of flood zone on the map, which is
All right, I'll put it on.
yeah, there's only kind of one thing we could think of that would be a natural hazard, and this is in here. This is actually a man-made culvert that actually holds the water back during flood times, and
Well, it's managed by Horizons.
Yes, so well, we lease the land to Horizon, so it's not actually a natural hazard. It's a man-made. It's sort of a.
It's a management tool for managing the flow of water through Marton.
So I'd argue that there is any natural hazards on the land, but if you did turn this area into residential, you'd probably exclude it from that zoning and use it for parkland or recreational area. The other points against MAR becoming residential were that the access with the accessibility, etc. And MAR 01 is serviced by a pretty wide Tutanui Road with established footpaths and existing street lightings. It's about a K to the main shopping centre. It's great connectivity. It's got ultra-fast broad fibre on the same side of Tutanui Road as MAR 01. It's got 3 bars of cell phone reception for Spark users. And it's as close as MAR 02 and through to 06 in terms of accessibility to the transport networks of State Highway 1, etc. So I'd probably push for a bit of a review of the rating criteria assigned to MAR 01 in your draft plan. So this is sort of in addition to what I actually wrote in my submission to you. So I've got copies of this if that's helpful as well. Any questions?
Any questions from councillors? Trisha, you're aware that the land use and rating processes are two different animals?
I gather, yeah. I did look at the how the rating is determined. It's
And you, part of your submission your oral submission seemed to relate to wanting a change in the rating structure.
No, it's a consequence.
As a consequence?
Yeah, we understand that.
Okay, that's something that probably we wouldn't be able to look at until a long-term plan position. That's the way it would play out. Further questions for councillors?
That's one for me, Your Worship. Trish, just so I'm clear on this, so you're supportive of the document and the land that's been identified, but it's the way in which it's been identified to break it down to residential. You're suggesting it should be something not quite as...
So it's only listed as moderately suitable for residential as opposed to highly compared to the other areas. So yes. I'm saying actually it's probably ahead of the pack, and through my arguments in some ways. But then I'm also saying, look, you know, rather than just cram a whole lot of tight residential, doing the same thing we've done with all our subdivisions, you know, let's be a bit more creative and try and use, be cognizant that we want to keep the land productive, and maybe we could do that by, you know, enabling small lifestyle blocks, which, you know, this policy statement doesn't want, but, you know, maybe it could actually improve the productivity of the land because no one's been able to make it earn money for the last 30 years. So, you know, maybe there's other ways you could do that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the clarity.
Thank you. Councillor Loudon.
Thank you. Do you see yourselves acting as developer? Because this concept will require a developer that would impose quite tight covenants on the land to achieve what you've been talking about.
Well, we don't specifically, we didn't set out to be developers, but we've actually bought recently another block of land on our boundary. So a small part of it does, I guess we would see as doing a little bit of development ourselves, but it's not our prime business or interest. But I see that this area lends itself to Martin's expansion plans.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? I thank you very much for your submission.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good.
I don't know if you want any more. I'll get some.
The next submission we have is from Rob Schneiders, and Rob, if you take your seat, we'll take the first 10 minutes, including question time with regards to the annual plan, and the second 10 minutes in terms of your submission to spatial plan. Or do you want to flip it the other way?
Oh, hey, look, I've got it pretty much lumped together, but you know, the annual plan, there was a lot to say about the spatial plan. I think the previous submitters have sort of talked about some of the things that I want to talk about.
Okay. Well, we'll split it up in that manner. It makes it easier just in terms of us processing stuff as well.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, Rob, you know the rules of engagement, if you like.
I do, yeah. It's good to be back.
You have 10 minutes, and you can, councillors, if there is time allowed, we'll be able to ask you questions, but you can't question councillors.
Yep, no, that's fine. I thought I'd just start today with a few quotes from the campaign trail of 2022. Inflationary pressures require prudent and risk-averse fiscal management. I also know and understand the challenges we face, not only with new infrastructure, but socially, environmentally as well. I understand business and financial management. Some of these things will start ringing a tune with a few of you around here. Practical solutions. to get projects done as quickly and efficiently as possible. Changing frowns to smiles, community wellbeing continues to be my end goal. Nobody wants rate rises, but unfortunately, the alternative is to go backwards with our roads and services is deteriorating. The rates increases include for funding of our three waters, which is important to prove to government that we do not need three waters legislation. I'd sort of beg to differ there. Pretty inspiring stuff. That bit about not needing three waters legislation got to me. And if you consider the capital expenditure that has gone into three waters versus civic buildings over the last 5 years in this district, civic buildings are coming out clear leaders. I'd also like to quickly touch on the public consultation meeting, particularly the one I went to on the 31st of March at Tubury Hall. I felt quite privileged, actually. I was the only member of public there amongst 3 councillors at that meeting. Fidel Getty was quite happy to share views. I think we were having a healthy debate over options for Marton. In fact, I thought we were actually getting somewhere and got the feeling she was taking an interest, so thank you. But then Greg Mahon turned up and it went to custard. He was not interested and put a dampener on things at which Dave Wilson appeared.
Excuse me, Rob, please refrain from identifying individual councillors or staff. It gets me into a difficult position. Thank you.
Sorry, what?
It's last week.
Stop the time just a second. You're seeking a clarification from my...
I just said to His Worship that there was a welcome note that outlines that rule.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I can quite easily finish off there, but anyway, it was quickly decided at that public consultation meeting that no one else was turning up, and 2 of the councillors decided to close shop very quickly, and I found the attitude quite astonishing. Totally against, obligations under the local governance statement, if you want terms of reference. There was still a healthy conversation going on with the other councillor, and neither the other 2 were interested in. So I sort of struggled with that. I was actually going to make a formal complaint. But anyway, we move on to civic buildings. The Marton Civic Centre, and equally the Taihape Town Hall needs a pretty big rethink. The majority of residents are completely disengaged with council, and it's obvious for obvious reasons, and they don't believe what they say will make a difference. I do not see how council can have confidence in a consultation that just gets 268 submissions for a population of nearly 15,000. The CBD is known to flood, and there's stories of significant flows in 2015, and I recall buildings being sandbagged in 2017. Even historic photos of flooding in Broadway just prior to the late Queen's visit showed quite significant flows. So to spend all that money on a site that you might not be able to access is quite ridiculous. Some of you talked about being financially prudent, so why not consider redeveloping this site so that the new buildings could be repurposed at a later date if required. We're getting Three Waters reorganisation. There's a very good chance we'll get local government reorganisation. And it was not that long ago, a vast amount of money was spent on the library, strengthening and re-roofing. What is the future of our libraries as we get deeper into the digital age? The cost of replenishing books, magazines runs into tens of thousands of dollars per year. And the 2031 LTP, we got $980,000 earmarked for books over that 10-year period. And it's hardly surprising when borrowing costs are 0 and fines for late returns don't exist. You can just hold on to it. So I'd say it's a very good potential cost saving there. And as I mentioned in my submission, you've not looked at what other neighbouring councils have done if they are cheaper single-storey options. There are other examples in towns where strengthening has taken place. Ward's Furniture, for example, Paper Plus Building, all done pretty grand jobs, and you're not looking at that. And I've got considerable experience in URM buildings as well. And the town hall and the grandstand up in Taihape, look to Wanganui, how they approach the Opera House. They took a risk-based approach in terms of the auditorium area versus the building in terms of the strengthening levels for there, because it was all based on public, the number of public in there. And I can't believe you turned away a contractor sort of willing to sort of start talking to you. That's what we call early contractor engagement. And you should have been having a chat to them, think, well, can we tease some ideas out? Can we come up with a scheme? But no, you sort of just pushed them away. You know, it's similar sort of approaches again, but taken with a lot of the buildings in Wanganui and other districts. You know, Gisborne has got some classic examples. Wellington has as well. You know, they've done some fantastic stuff with masonry buildings, but they haven't put council offices in them. And you may say that you follow the government guidelines in terms of all your workshopping, but that's a biased approach. And if you look at the people that were on that workshop, it was a specialist, you know, special invitation only. And I bet you if you went around and did a bit of a speed dating exercise with the public, you would come up with a totally different result. We know the public consultations are poorly attended. And you know, what are the operational costs for these buildings? Because the one at Bulls has never been disclosed, despite being asked, and there's still ongoing issues surrounding the bus lane, the changing rooms, and the saga goes on. You know, and everyone knew that if you know, traffic's like water, you give them a shorter route and they'll take it. And now there's more cost associated with that building. We're hearing that the council's internal costs for that building, capitalised costs, is somewhere over $2 million. Operational costs are over $200,000 a year. And the loan for that building to the public or to the ratepayer should have only been $1.5 million in the original sales pitch. I think it's substantially more than that. And then we're also hearing similar sort of numbers for Marton Civic Centre. You know, a couple of $1 million so far spent. You know, quick calculation, you get a pretty flashy, prefabricated office building for that. You know, 500 square metres plumped on site, ready to go. Could have done that years ago. But no, we want something two-storey, iconic, and it isn't going to change the face of the Marton Town Centre. You've got all those other buildings that got to be dealt with. That isn't going to change. And then we got the good old shared pathway. You know, where's that come from? There's no accident history there to suggest that there's a safety risk along there, or Natawa Road. You know, I can account for one accident on Natawa Road where I had a sort of an incident with a four-legged friend, but, you know, nothing else there that suggests there's a problem there. So I find it really quite staggering how a footpath gets priority over extended opening hours for a swimming pool or swimming pools in the district. It really is quite incredible. You know, and the existing footpaths in town are a shocking state. And actually, I'll just read you a little extract from the LTP. An ageing population is creating demands for improvements to footpaths so that they are more suitable for users of mobility scooters. You know, I think we've forgotten we've got to do that.
About another minute left.
Yep, no worry, I'm nearly at the end of that. So, you know, council reports might say that footpaths are in good condition. They're not. You know, you go for a walk around on them at night, particularly with this rain, the slippery, trip hazards, covered in water, and, you know, in a shocking condition. So I think you just need to have a complete rethink on the buildings and this path. Put money into infrastructure, like you have said in your sales pitch last year.
There's about 30 seconds left. Councillors, is there a dying question that you wish to take part in? Just one from me, Rob.
Yep.
When you say that we've closed our mind to working with strengthening an existing building, what leads you to believe that's the case?
Well, it was in the minutes of the meeting, the last council meeting. You were approached by someone to look at, with respect to the Taihape Town Hall. And they gave you a sort of a rough order figure for strengthening, and I gather in the minutes that was sent away.
I can't comment further on with regard to that.
I'll dig the extract out and send it to you.
Thank you very much. You have 10 minutes available in terms of the spatial plan.
Yep.
Rob, that time sits with you.
Okay. You know, as I mentioned in my submission, which was a quick cobble together, is anybody can put blotches of colour on a bit of paper. You know, it is a bit of a district plan change by stealth, but I do appreciate that we've got, you know, the Spatial Planning Act coming through. It's all going to start replacing sections of the RMA. So if we are going to do things like this, we need to make sure we do a proper job. And the previous submitters here were talking about, you know, there's a number of things which are going on around the district which haven't been taken account of in the spatial plan. And it's not just Marton, you know, it's all the other ones. It's the approach that's been actually taken. And, you know, no one's sort of really considered have you actually looked at what you're proposing? Can you actually deliver it? And I'd say in a lot of cases you can't. You know, there was land identified in the previous one that they have got attenuation features on there for which actually sort out flood issues in Marton. So, you know, I actually sort of like look at this and think that it needs a big rethink. There's some districts around doing some really incredible stuff with how they've mapped out their spatial plans in terms of put on proposed new roads that needs to go in, all these geographic features that are all located on there as well, all these new footpath links they're trying to create. So they actually are creating this real quite comprehensive picture of what can be done, you know, including infrastructure, water supply and sewage, you know, where does that all have to go to? And, you know, you've got to look at, well, at the moment you're upgrading the Marton water supply, which still is quite some time off, but actually have you got enough supply in that if you were looking at boosting population like you're talking about between now and 2050? And I would say in the case of Marton unlikely, and I'd say in the case of the other districts extremely unlikely as well. So, you know, I actually think that whole drawing needs to go back, start again, and actually start overlaying all the other geographical features on there, including floodplains. You know, what other features, you know, what are we trying to create? You know, do we need new arterial routes around? You know, we've got a lot of heavy goods traffic coming through town. Does that all need to change? And that goes for this town and the rest. So that's pretty much me in terms of spatial plan.
Are you happy to take questions?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Questions from councillors. Councillor Wong and myself, Councillor Wong.
Rob, thank you for your submissions, very interesting. You mentioned that the other districts have a far more detailed spatial plan with geographic features. Yes. Could you perhaps maybe send it to us because we can compare it, because I'd be very interested to see.
I can do that.
Yes, please. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a very similar question. They sort of jumped in ahead of me, which is great. Is there a particular council that you think is a role model in this space? Because we seem to be being held up as a role model
really?
In local government.
Geez, well, blimey, the one that's quite interesting at the moment, Kuiper are doing quite a good version, because they've got some issues in terms of the way their town faces as well. That's one that sort of stand out because I've sort of got some familiarity up there as well. So they're doing quite well, I think. You know, there's a lot doing similar things to what Rangatiki's doing, blotches of colour. But is it deliverable? Because there's some big money numbers against this stuff that you're talking about, and what you're actually looking at is a good bit of hardy, you know, what we call master planning at the end of the day. And you need to start building up some details of what you're actually looking for. You know, do we need to, on these landowners, start to impose how, you know, it is going to be developed? You know, do we need these attenuation features? Because as you start introducing more, you know, impermeable area, you've got to make sure it's compensated for on the way through.
Councillor Duncan.
Thank you, Rob. I really appreciate your presentation. As far as this spatial plan goes, though, my feeling around it is that we haven't had one, And it's been great that we're finally putting something together, and we've been very lucky in Katrina, Miss Gray, to assist us, and we finally do have
This shouldn't be about your opinion.
sorry, a draft.
Question.
Yes, so you realise it is a draft document,
Yep.
and that it's also a living document.
Yes, absolutely. I do appreciate that, and that's why I mean it needs a serious amount of work. You know, it's a good first step, but it does need a serious amount of work. And I would just go almost town by town all the way through and just say, right, we're going to start mapping geological or geographical features all the way through, do that for all of them, and just start to get these overlays so you start to see. And then you've got to start marking on primary routes as well, because don't forget Wakakatahi, you've got a new labelling system which is coming out. It's affecting bigger towns, you know, like Wanganui, Palmerston North, because as I try and move to active mobility, then you've got to start compensating for that. And what happens is you don't get any subsidy on those roads which change over. So they're sort of dictating what's going on. And there's none of that. That needs to be built into that plan as well.
Okay, Councillor Wilson, myself, Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you for your presentation, but I'm just a little bit concerned, and I ask this question. You said that it's your belief that we don't have enough water, not only in Marton for future development and also in other parts of the district. Have you got some sort of study or some information that you could share with us that leads you to the fact that you think that we don't have that? Is there some report that you've got that maybe would be helpful?
Yeah, I'm just using the information that you guys have got here, that actually, and also the demands as the district grows, because and until this new bore gets developed and we know what the flows are going to be, I would say if you look at the two that you've got at the moment, and by the time you fire the third one up, you'll be struggling. If all you want to do is run on 3 bores, it just means that if you turn off the tap to the dam, then you're going to be struggling. If you have to if one of your bores goes down for a period of time and you have to lift that, I mark my words, you will, particularly in the summertime. And at the moment, there's no real concrete proof to illustrate otherwise.
Supplementary, Mayor?
If it's quick.
It is quick. Are you aware of what our current bore flow status are?
I know that the Calico is pretty low. It's about 700 on up at Tutanui, and the other one hasn't been developed yet, isn't it? Because it's just a test bore.
So you're not actually sure?
I'm not sure, but I would suspect if you work on the same value as the other one, then you're going to be in that ballpark.
Just a final question from me in terms of it. Have you looked through the spatial plan and looked at the details section, which gives the overlay against floodplains and access, those sorts of things?
I've flicked through it. Yep, it doesn't. It's it still needs some work. I'm aware of where all the floodplains are, but there are other those features that the previous submitter are not recorded on there.
But you sort of made the comment that they're not in the spatial plan.
Yeah, it all needs to be more comprehensively in with the others.
Thank you. Any further questions? I thank you, Rob, for your time.
Okay. That's nice. No, jogging. Yeah.
Right, the next submission we have is from John Ransom. So John, your page 127 community spatial plan. John, you will have heard the rules around timeframes and how it works. Thank you for taking the time to submit. You can take it as read that we will have read the submissions, but the time's yours.
Okay, so I am John Ransom. I'm a long-term resident at Scott's Ferry. Thank you for the opportunity to make this submission today. My concern is my discussion is the inadequacy of the Scott's Ferry stormwater drainage system. So just to give a little bit of background first, is
the regional council recognised that the more frequent and intense storms and the aggregation in the lower Rangitikei River, it would be necessary to upgrade the protection, the flood protection for the community, for Scott's Ferry and for the surrounding farmland. This was done by raising the stop banks recently. The main stop bank on the Rangitikei River was raised by 1 metre. The small stop bank associated with Scott's Ferry, the small surrounding stop bank, was raised by 0.5 metre. So this work provided additional protection for the Scott's Ferry village, but unfortunately it doesn't help at all with the flooding within the Scott's Ferry catchment. The village and surrounding catchments only means of drainage is through 2 drains which drain out into the Rangitikei River. These drains are protected with flood flaps which are designed to shut and stop backflow of the river at a time when the river level is higher than any water level in the drains within Scott's Ferry. When this occurs, the drainage from the village is cut off and local rain can quickly build up in the community, and surface flooding will continue to build as long as those flaps are shut. So as long as the river level in the Rangitikei is higher than the water level within the community, within the village, the water will continue to build. Raised levels in the river generally last for 2 or 3 days, but can be much longer. So surface flooding in the Scott's Ferry village occurs several times a year. The District Council renewed the drainage pipes throughout the village recently, for which we were most grateful. But unfortunately, they are useless at a time when the flood flaps are shut to stop the water getting shut, which stops the water getting out into the river. So those drains are great for draining the village and draining all the different properties, but when those flood flaps are shut, that water can't get away. So those drains actually build up, the water builds up in those new drains that we've got and then floods back into the properties. So the solution, we think, what we would like is for pumps to be installed on those 2 drains where they drain into the river, pumps which would lift the water at the times when the flood flaps were shut, would lift the water up over the stop bank out into the river. And we don't believe that those pumps would need to be massive, very big, because they could start operating as soon as the flood flaps shut. They could start operating and keep up with the water that was coming down them from the local catchment. And that would hopefully reduce the risk of flooding into our properties. Now I should say we had one of the council representatives or managers come down into the village and have a look and have a walk around. Well, I should say we've discussed this situation before with council or with some of you people, and it's kind of an ongoing discussion. But we did have one of your representatives come down into the village and walk through the village and have a look at the situation. Unfortunately, he didn't speak with any of the locals, so he didn't get an overview of what. He just saw a picture of what was happening at the time, which was no flooding, nothing. And I don't believe he understood the dynamics of the situation. He suggested that the flood flaps would only be shut for a limited period, like only a matter of a few hours at a time. And I think probably the reason he came to that conclusion was probably he thought that they were affected by the tide, by the tidal flow, which is only a matter of hours between high and low tide. But in fact, those flaps can be shut for, generally they're shut for 2 or 3 days while the river is elevated. They can be shut for over a week. So during that period that they're shut, there's no drainage out of the village at all. So any water that falls within our catchment is caught in its building. He also suggested that we only have a small catchment in the Scotts Ferry catchment, which is probably correct. It is only a fairly small catchment. It extends from the beach through the village, and it takes in some of the southern part of the forest, the Santoff forest. That all flows out through our 2 drains, which flow through the settlement. Even though it's a fairly small catchment, it's a very flat catchment. So any water that falls quickly builds over a wide area. And the other issue is that we always have a fairly high water table. So there's not a lot of soakage. It doesn't take long before that water level comes up. And the drains then operate, but of course they can't if the floodgates are shut. The other suggestion that he made was that the idea of putting a pump on Amon's drain might help alleviate the problem within Scotts Ferry. Well, it certainly will help in terms of Scotts Ferry residents getting out of Scotts Ferry in the event of a big flood, because it will stop the road from flooding, which will stop traffic going out. So that pump would be useful for that, but it will have no effect whatsoever on drainage within the Scotts Ferry village. It's totally dissociated with the Scotts Ferry village, so that would have no effect at all. And just on that, in the event that the road did flood, and it has done a number of times, there is another route out of Scotts Ferry that we have used from time to time. At the period when we had the big 004 flood, we were able to get out, and we got out through the forestry. There is some risk associated with that in terms of trees might be down, but even on that occasion, a couple of us took chainsaws and we quickly cleared the way and got out. So we're not necessarily stuck if the road is flooded. But I guess that's getting away from the point. The point is that surface flooding within Scotts Ferry at a time when the 2 drains are not able to drain out into the Rangatiki River is really what. You've got about a minute left.
Well, that's about all I want to say. So
you happy to take some questions?
Absolutely, yeah.
Councillor Lambert.
So just, I haven't been out there for a few years now, to be honest, but like the flooding you said happens several times a year, is that right?
Yeah.
And it's probably to the same, like is it ankle deep? Sort of, how deep is it?
Well,
are you talking just above the surface grass, or you know?
Some of the lower lying sections it can get quite deep. And the flooding occurs, the village is split in 2. One end goes out through one drain, and at that end, that's the road, well, the eastern end, the water can get quite deep in some of the sections, up over floor level.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice.
It can do.
Yeah.
And the other end drains also a lot of the farmland up there, and they can get a lot of surface water through the sections, which can take some time to drain away.
Councillor Dalgety, you need to be quick, and the answer needs to be.
I'm just wondering, how long has this been going on for?
Well, I'm 74 years old, and it's been going all my life. So
that answers that. Councillor Duncan.
Are you asking that the priority for the pump be put into the Scotts Ferry township, or instead of the Amon drain?
And not instead of, no.
As well as.
I mean, it would be wonderful to have both, but in terms of draining Scotts Ferry,
those two pumps will do that. The Amon drain pump won't drain the community, the settlement. John, thank you very much for your time. We understand well and truly your issue. And we'll go through the deliberation stage. Well, thank you for your time. And thanks, Matt, for turning up and support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So councillors, we've had the next submitter, Bruce Potaker, pull out. So I'll move straight through to Bruce Deere. Bruce, as I understand it, I'm not quite sure if you asked for a...
No, he didn't tick the box, so he wasn't contacted for a speaking time, but he asked through Councillor Carter if we could include him today, and you agreed.
Thank you.
So I'll
Bruce.
hand out this.
Can the minutes reflect that there is a table document, please, with regard to this oral submission? Bruce, will you take your...
Defer to.
Thank you.
Bruce, the same rules apply to you. You have 10 minutes, including question time. How you treat that is yours, but if you speak for 10 minutes, then we can't...
I'll be doing that.
Oh, next one.
Go ahead, the time is yours.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to speak to my submission. Haylock Park needs to be developed into a sports field, playground and green area that the town expects, and this needs to start now. I again walked the streets around the park area delivering spatial plan submission forms, and with the response the residents gave, I'm hopeful that they followed through with their thoughts on how the park should be developed. With the neighbouring development starting, this park should work in tandem, so when the new families arrive, their children have a park close by in which to play and enjoy. This would also be a benefit to the developers who will sell their sections quicker, which in turn will benefit the Rangitikei District Council by way of a greater rate intake earlier. I envisage a soccer field. Currently the Bulls Hakia Junior Soccer Club have no suitable grounds available in Bulls on which to practice and play their home games. They're having to travel to Marton and use a field there. This is hardly a fair deal. This club has been in operation for over 25 years. A children's playground for younger children with equipment similar to that is at Walker Park is suggested. And I understand that Marton has just got a new playground of an ideal design that could be considered. An area with activities for older children and a fitness track for sports-minded could be included as seen in the park in Levin. A dog exercise area suitably enclosed be available for those people who want to be able to let their dogs off the leash and run around. Toilets, covered area and perhaps a barbecue. Seating placed around the park so parents and caregivers can comfortably watch their children enjoy the facilities on offer. Parking would be required in the park off Walker Crescent and if possible off the new subdivision. No motor vehicle roadway is required as there are 3 road exits out of the subdivision. They are Johnson Street, Gorton Street and Flower Street, as is shown in the first map there around the yellow lines. A pathway through the park suitable for mobility scooters, walking frames and pedestrians would provide connectivity from the subdivision and into the town. It will also provide a loop for many people who daily walk the town. I've been in contact with Councillors Carter and Kalkin and would like to see interested people come forward to work together to bring ideas and suggestions, and that these would then come forward to Council with the recommendation and support of the Bulls Community Committee. The questions I have of Council are, is there a motor vehicle roadway through Haylock Park being considered by Council as shown in the developer's plan? Is a roadway needed? Is a mobility scooter walking frame or pedestrian walkway provide sufficient connectivity from the subdivision to the town? Could locals be used in the development under the direction of council engineers? And does the council have a time frame as to when work would start or could start? That's a response to my submission. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions from councillors? Councillor Dalgety?
Right, and so you mentioned that the soccer club have been going for 25 years.
Yes.
Where have they been playing when they weren't using Marton?
They were using Clifton School playground, but that is hasn't been maintained. It's very wet and not practical.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Moore?
Just, have you had discussions with the Bulls Community Committee about Haylock Park?
I'm on the committee.
Oh, yeah. So you've had discussion.
Yes.
So this is your personal one, but
This is my personal.
yeah,
Yes.
but the Bulls.
I do not see the community committee taking on the job of Haylock Park. I would see the community doing that and then going through the committee to the council.
Further questions from councillors? Councillor Loudon?
Oh, just the, on the developer's map of the road going through Haylock Park, do you know why that's been put through Haylock Park?
No, I've only just picked that up off their website. So I don't know if they know more information than I do, whether that's true or inaccurate or not. That's just off their website.
Technically, within this process, you can't question councillors. In this instance, I will follow back with you around those processes as to where that's at. Councillors, anything further?
One, if I may, very quickly. Bruce, have you spoken to the developers?
No.
Thank you.
Bruce, there's been quite a considerate discussions within the Bulls community as to where resources should go in relation to sports and recreation. They tended to be centred on the domain. Do you see the development of the housing changing that situation?
How do you mean?
Well, the fact that we have a developer with a consenting process that will potentially allow a huge number of new houses to be built, do you see that as a game changer in terms of demand?
Well, it must do, because there's going to be more people around in the area. And it's the only green area on the western side of State Highway 3.
Okay. Well, Bruce, thank you very much for your time.
Thank
Rita, I know you've just walked in, but are you happy to take the stand?
Oh, that's quick. Good. Someone missing?
We have one pull-out, but...
So I get extra time?
No.
Always try.
So Greta, you've asked for 2 lots of 10 minutes to speak with regard to the annual plan and spatial plans, etc., fees and charges, revenue, financing, etc. So how do you wish to use that time?
I won't talk about the spatial plan.
Okay. Well, look, how about, so
But
what would you
I'm
like to
concerned
talk
about some other things, so maybe I would like more than 10 minutes, maybe 15.
No, what I have to do is split it up in 2 sections. So if you're talking about the annual plan, fees and charges is one thing, in which you have a maximum of 10 minutes, including question time. And then the revenue and financing policy, you would have a maximum of 10 minutes, including questions on that. Do you see the split?
Okay. Well,
can't
I've
just,
combined them, not knowing what was going to happen.
yeah.
And it's much quicker than 10 minutes.
Look, I'm prepared to waive some time if you would like to say that 15 minutes would be adequate for both, and it's your planning
Let's
around
hope
that.
so, because some of us will need lunch.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Greta, in terms of that time frame, how you use it is your concern. But if you want the ability for councillors to be asked questions at the end of it, it needs to be within that 15 minutes, right?
Okay.
You're familiar with the process, that you can't ask questions of councillors, they can ask questions of you, etc. Go for it, your turn. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Kia koutou. Right, I'm Greta Mills. I first came to Marton in 1977. I've been a ratepayer for more than 40 years and I've had local employment. I started up a business in 1997. We just sold off the IP4 last year and started up a new one. And we've brought up 3 sons in Rangatake who are now, one actually lives here with his wife and has made Marton home. One in England who's now coming home, and one in Taranaki. I'm a ratepayer here, and I'm also a ratepayer in Horowhenua District Council. Right, this morning I'm going to talk about the 3 Ps. No, not pee, poo, paper, flushing toilets. And not the 3 principles of the Treaty of Waitangi, partnership, protection and participation, though I would like those to be regarded. I'd like to talk about process, people and projects. I've got my flags here. Anyone know this one?
United Nations.
United Nations. So that actually came from the United Nations in New York, and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is very relevant. Right, the long-term plan. I don't know whether you're aware that someone who wants to see the big picture, like me, who does the big picture and the ground stuff, needs to read one huge layer of long-term plan. How many pages? How many of our residents have a printer or the ability to print or the internet? Or I go to the library, there were 2 copies, and unfortunately, like other people, they grabbed the thing that looked like this, but it was actually last year's annual plan. And there was 1 copy. The only thing that was on the desk at the library was this. That is only Marton. I had to download a heap more from a document this thick for the spatial plan. In the end, I just did not have time to do both with one deadline. Right. So you read all these, you're directed to this. This is boiled down to an annual plan of 3 things, each of them with council highlighting this is what we think, and the ability just to tick. Is that democracy? Not allowed to ask questions. Because people just tick, 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 because they're there for one purpose. Oh, the government, the council wants this tick. And sometimes the choices have already been narrowed down considerably, and you haven't got the background information to actually make that decision. The interesting thing I found that wasn't even mentioned was the Pūronga Ātau. Can't ask you. Guess what? I guessed it was something to do with the year. It's the annual report, which is actually really useful for a citizen. Okay, so please bear in mind how much you are putting on people to make crucial decisions. Next is the people. Marton has 16,100 people, something like that from 2022. The mean income is 56,129 last year. In 2022, the minimum wage gave you if you got 40 hours a week, gave you 47,216, which is a whole $908 gross per week at $22.70 per hour. The living wage last year, well, it's coming in this year, I've done it on this year's one, will bring you to 54,080, or just over 1,000 gross per week at $26. So if that is the mean, we've got a huge number of people below that. And maybe a few really above that. So I'm concerned about gender, age, ethnicity, disability, and particularly equity and social justice. I was also interested to find that self-employment rate in the Rangitikei surpasses the New Zealand average. We've got 21.4% of people like myself who are self-employed. That's quite a few. Right, the projects. Now, you will have all read them. Maybe you need to just ask me questions.
Councillors, questions? Councillor Wong.
Thank you for your submission, Peter. I appreciate how much paperwork there is involved. To make a decision, do you have a suggestion for perhaps something a report that you would like to see circulated that would have a core information so people can make a more information for their decision based on the fact that most people aren't as meticulous in their preparation as you are?
Right, I would draw your attention, I don't know whether anyone's ever looked at the Hora Whenua. This was their consultation document. And when they have an issue, like they've got, oh, there's a good one for us, more trucks in the Rangitikei. Keep the live-in landfill closed with no alternative site use was option 1. Option 2 was keep the landfill closed with revenue generated from alternative site use determined through the WMMP development, which waste management. Okay, it gives all the advantages. The 3, and oh, they don't actually say, but they've got a whole line of what they've done about it. So yes, they've still got glossies, and it's probably not a good one to do, but the key differences between the options, okay, listed. And then on the back, I'll just find it. They actually did all the different rating rates, changes that would be made, and of course I can't find it now. Oh, here. Oh, this was the one about the rating, and they showed how the rates would change for all the different sectors. So very visual, very compact, and yeah, you probably still need to look into the archives. But I get a monthly newsletter, that says all sorts of interesting things. They have photo competitions. They lead you from the newsletter into things in more depth on their website. And it's very friendly and very open, and they've said quite publicly that this consultation process doesn't really work, so they have other ways of reaching the public. So you can have a cup of tea with a councillor on the second Thursday, I think, of every month, in Levin, Shannon or Foxton. No, it's with a councillor and it's a cup of tea. That's a very open invitation. I haven't taken it up yet. But that beats going to a meeting at night where you don't know who's there and whether someone's going to know anything. That means that all the councillors need to be familiar with what they're discussing and are able to discuss it with any constituent. And if you're having meetings in Shannon, it's obviously the councillors from Shannon. If it's in Levin, it's the Levin ones. So it's helps the different centres.
Greta, question from me.
Yeah.
Are you aware of the number of times that we have offered exactly the same service where, for instance, I, for instance, will say I'm working out of Bull's Te Matapi today, or Taihape, or all the number of public opportunities that were to engage in terms of spatial plan, annual plans. Did you attend any of them?
No. They're either in the daytime, you know, I've got work to do, and yeah, they just weren't at a time I was able to get there. And then I wondered what I would learn differently face to face, in that I'd read the documents already and I'd heard. Well, and for these ones, I'd heard what the council wanted to do already. And I know someone else who went to one of those meetings and was told, oh, this is what we're going to do. It was more about, this is what we know we're going to do. You know, what do you think about it?
Further questions for councillors? No, okay. Thank you very much, Greta, for your time.
Can I just add that last bit on my submission, the last one, about those two constitutional things you obviously had to consult on?
Are you talking about the financing, what are you?
Revenue.
Yeah, those two that I read, and then the ones from last year just didn't match. There was no comparison.
Okay, thank you.
And also, the flying pigs in one changed colour and size in the next year.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you to the person who introduced flying pigs.
Okay. Thank you. I did note your comment about the sense of humour of the staff in terms of putting flying pigs into financial statements. Thank you for your time. Right. Do we have Emily?
Not yet, she's due at 12. So we'll just have to keep an eye
Okay,
on
so councillors will just come offline. And for those people online, I'm sorry, we are waiting now potentially till 12 o'clock. So notice.
Right, yeah, that's yours.
That's Emily, isn't it? See where I put my stuff. Emily, just bear with us. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you.
I'm Andy. I'm the mayor. I'll just bear with us a second while we get the right people back in the room. We took a break for a minute.
No worries.
I think this is it. So this is it.
Peter Joy joining us. Right, thank you. Emily, thank you very much for your submission. We have a number of councillors in the room. You may not be able to see them all. However, the rules here are you have 10 minutes to be able to talk to your submission, which includes question time. And how you use that 10 minutes is your call. Any questions about process first?
No, that sounds good.
Okay, fire ahead. You have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Emily Levinson, and I'm an environmental policy advisor at Horticulture New Zealand. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to our submission on the spatial strategy and plan. I'm going to briefly cover the key points from our submission just based on the executive summary, and then I'll leave the rest of my time for questions. So first of all, Horticulture New Zealand greatly appreciates that the plan identifies horticulture as a potential growth area, especially given that with our changing climate, the district may have some warmer weather, which would extend the growing season and make it even more suitable for horticultural crops. Second of all, horticulture often occurs on the edge of towns and cities, and so our main priority is that highly productive land is preserved for primary production, including around towns, and protected from reverse sensitivity effects and inappropriate use and development. And on this note, it's very important that the spatial plan give effect to the national policy statement for highly productive land. And in particular, there was one block that was identified in Bowles, Bowl 07, which is a block of LUC class 2 soils that was identified for possible lifestyle development. The reason given in the spatial plan was that this land was fragmented, but as far as Hort NZ can see, it's not fragmented, and so should thus be preserved for primary production. It's important to recognize that horticulture can occur on small land parcels, and so this space is plenty to develop horticulture. In addition, we want to support the vision of Bowles as a food processing, distribution, and logistics hub. This would be very well aligned with future fruit and vegetable growing in the region. And in order to support this vision, we ask that the quality soils in the area are preserved for horticultural use, and also that buildings like pack houses or glass houses that could be supportive to horticulture are allowed to be built nearby this productive land. This is my first time speaking at a council hearing, so I want to thank you for being a very open audience. And with that, I'd like to leave the rest of my time for questions.
Thank you very much, Emily. Yeah. Thank you very much, Emily. In terms of your presentation, questions from councillors? Councillor Dalgety, Councillor Loudon, Councillor Dalgety first. Councillor.
Thank you, Emily, for your submission. I'm interested. Oh, this way, beg your pardon. Interested, please, what do you think should be the minimum size parcel of land for horticulture?
So I might have to get back to you with a particular answer to that, but I can say that orchards as small as 1 or 2 hectares can be productive and economically viable. So it's possible to have a very small parcel.
Thank you.
Councillor.
I actually had the same questions. Thank you.
Emily, in terms of maintenance of our rural roads to be able to support this, this is a subject that is dear to the heart of councillors. Are you submitting as an organisation to Waka Kotahi or government or any other shape and form?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Would you be happy if we used your submission as part of the advocacy role that we have in going to those organisations?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor Loudon.
You've talked about bulls and you've identified a land holding in bulls. Marton is also surrounded by LEC 2 and 3 land. Do you have any comment around Marton's land?
I think that in that plan, we didn't identify a block that was inappropriately set aside for lifestyle development. But in general, for Marton or any other area, we would just hope that highly productive land is preserved for primary production under the NPS HPL. And that when you're looking at fragmentation, you're recognizing that horticulture can occur on a small land parcel. And so fragmentation might not impact horticulture in the same way that it would pastoral activities.
It's a supplementary question.
Yeah, supplementary question, go ahead.
We've had a submission today of someone with a 43 hectare land holding north of Marton, which is highly productive land, and it was geared around smaller lifestyle lots that could be productive along the lines that you've talked about. How would horticulture, or how would the planning evolve around convents to try and allow those sites? How would it gear towards stating that those sites need to be used along productive lines? If you get my question.
I think I got your question.
Yeah,
Correct me if I'm going along the wrong lines here, but in terms of enabling horticulture for us, the most important issues are just that housing and lifestyle development isn't located too close to land that is being used for horticulture, just because of those potential reverse sensitivity effects from noise or aesthetics or anything else. And then the next most important thing is, like we talked about, roads and infrastructure, just making sure that there's the transportation infrastructure available to be moving produce to market. And then the other thing that can be very supportive for horticulture is to allow in the planning for glass houses, pack houses, or other buildings that are necessary or auxiliary to horticultural activities to be built nearby. So for example, it might be helpful to have a place that's industrial nearby horticultural land, if that means that a pack house can be built there, and then there's a shortened time for that produce to make it to the pack house and then to be shipped out to market. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Thank you. Emily, I'm interested in a little bit of a wider subject here than straight for our annual plan or spatial plan. We have a strong engagement within our district and region around fed farmers, for example, meat and wool, forestry sections. Probably in terms of horticulture, we don't have the same opportunity easily to engage. Any suggestions around that process and how strong your membership is, etc.?
Well, we do have about 15 growers in your district, so not a huge number, but I think there is potential for a lot more. In terms of engaging, you can reach out to Horticulture New Zealand as the voice of the horticulture sector. Sometimes there are district associations in local areas, but since there are so few growers currently located in your area, I don't think that they're organized in that way. So Horticulture New Zealand would really be the people to come to.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillors, any further questions?
No, that's pretty good.
Well, Emily, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for the way you presented, and we will come back to you in terms of the decisions made subsequently by council.
Thanks so much.
Cheers. We have one more potential submitter Withdrawn. So all I now need to do is formally close. I'll formally close the meeting at 12:10.
Second.
Thank you. Those in favour, carry.
Aye.
Thank you, councillors, for your time.
Right, righty.